The marble floor shimmered beneath her knees as she scrubbed under the last chandelier of the night. Midnight fog pressed against the glass like a ghost trying to get in. Catherine's hands, raw from bleach, trembled as she opened the old violin case hidden behind the mop bucket. But she never played. She only stared at it, until the faint echo of a child's violin floated in from the street outside. It was the same melody she once performed at Juilliard, the one no one knew but her. And her daughter had never been taught. Rain slammed against the glass facade of the Sapphire restaurant, but inside, the air was warm with wine, laughter, and polished power. Billionaire James Wright sat at his usual corner table, dressed in charcoal wool and arrogance, swirling his drink as if waiting for the world to impress him. It rarely did anymore. That night was different. A sound, soft at first, threaded its way through the velvet-clad crowd. It wasn't the string quartet tucked beside the fireplace. No, this was raw. Alive. It came from the street. James tilted his head. A single violin. One note, held too long, vibrating with pain. Then another, hesitant but haunting. It was like someone had cracked open the silence of the universe and let it bleed. He stood. Something in his chest, long locked away, rattled to life. By the time he reached the entrance, the maitre d' was already shooing the girl away. She was maybe 12. Soggy sneakers, wool coat 2 sizes too big, cheeks flushed from cold and nerves. But her hands, those hands clutched a battered violin like it was made of glass and grief. "She can't play here, sir," the host muttered. "It's bad for the image." James ignored him. "What piece was that?" he asked, voice lower than he expected. The girl blinked. I don't know the name. It just came out." His jaw tightened. That wasn't possible. That melody wasn't on any street performer's list. It was a chamber piece, obscure, composed by a forgotten French prodigy, and performed once at the Conservatory Gala 15 years ago by a violinist whose name had vanished from every program since. "Where did you hear that?" he pressed. The girl shrank a little. "My mom hums it when she thinks I'm asleep." "What's your name?" "Lucy." James exhaled like he'd been punched. She started to back away, clutching the violin. "I didn't mean to make trouble." "Wait," he said, softer. "Would you play it again?" Her eyes searched his, confused, but something about his expression, shocked, pleading, undone, held her there. With trembling fingers, she raised the bow again. This time, the crowd fell into hush. Forks paused mid-air. Eyes lifted from soufflés and shareholder summaries. The music floated in like fog. And James felt 12 again, standing in the hallway of a boarding school, ear pressed to a door as someone wept through strings. That same piece. That same ache. He didn't remember sitting down. He didn't remember crying. But when he blinked, his cheeks were wet. The music stopped. Applause didn't come right away. Just silence. Reverent, disarmed silence. Then came the whispers. "Who is she? Did you see his face? She's just a kid, where did she learn that?" James rose unsteadily. "Bring her and her mother to my office," he ordered the host. The man flinched. She said her mom works here, sir." "Cleaning shift. Basement level." James's brows shot up. "Here." Before the host could respond, a soft voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Wright?" It was the girl. "Please, don't tell her. She doesn't like attention." "Why not?" he asked, turning to her. "She says she used to play, a long time ago. But she gave it up. Says music's not for people like us anymore." He crouched down to meet her gaze. "What's your mother's name?" "Catherine. Catherine Wilson." The name hit him like a ghost dragged from ash. His lips parted, but no words came. He had known that name. Had once mocked it, then revered it, then mourned it like a story with no ending. Lucy shifted, suddenly uneasy. "Are we in trouble?" "No," he said. "No, sweetheart. You just brought someone back from the dead." That night, James didn't go home. He stayed in his penthouse office above the restaurant, staring at old newspaper clippings long buried in drawers. Headlines from another life. Violin prodigy Catherine Wilson vanishes before Paris debut. Freak car crash ends promising career. Wilson withdraws from conservatory, no further comment. No obituary. No updates. She disappeared like a dream. Until now. He buzzed his assistant. "I want everything we have on a Catherine Wilson. Address. Employment. Family. Anything. Use the restaurant payroll if you have to." "Yes, Mr. Wright." By 3 a.m., he had the file in his hands. 1-bedroom basement unit. No partner listed. Daughter enrolled in public middle school. Night janitor for 3 years, never missed a shift. No criminal record. No debts. No past. Except that wasn't true, was it? He looked again at the grainy ID photo on the staff file. Tired eyes. Pulled back hair. No trace of the luminous firebrand he remembered standing center stage in Vienna at 19, bow aloft like she was about to summon lightning. But the eyes, those were the same. He leaned back in his chair, chest hollow. Why hadn't she come forward? Why let herself be forgotten, erased? Unless she'd chosen it. The next evening, Catherine arrived for her shift with the same quiet grace she always carried. Uniform crisp. Hair neat. Eyes downcast. James stood in the hallway, waiting. When she saw him, she froze. Her grip on the mop tightened, and her voice, when it came, was barely audible. "You shouldn't be down here." "I heard your daughter play," he said. She closed her eyes. "I told her not to." "You lied to her," he said, stepping closer. "You told her you gave it up. That music wasn't for people like you." "She's better off not knowing," Catherine whispered. "But she already does," James said. "She's you. The way she played. Catherine, she's never been taught that piece." She felt it. Her breath caught. "Why are you hiding?" he asked, softer now. "You were the best of us." "I was," she said, voice breaking. "But life has a way of demanding everything. And when it's gone, you either mourn it, or survive. And you chose to survive." "No," she said, finally meeting his gaze. "I chose her." That was the first time he saw it, the flicker of pain behind her strength. Not regret. But sacrifice. "She's going to change the world," James murmured. "No," Catherine said. "She's going to fix mine." James didn't know it then, but in that moment, a decision took root inside him, something deeper than business or ego. He wasn't just going to help them. He was going to find out what broke them in the first place. And he was going to make it right. 12 years earlier, the old upright piano in room 314 of the St. Jude Women's Recovery Center wheezed like it had secrets to keep. Its keys were yellowed, chipped at the edges, sounding like memories instead of music. Catherine Wilson sat on the bench, her fingers trembling as they hovered above middle C. She hadn't touched an instrument in nearly a year. "Just once," whispered Sister Althea from the doorway. "Just to remember." Catherine smiled weakly. Remembering is the hardest part. But she played anyway. Just 3 bars. Enough to shake the air. Enough to silence the late-night coughing, the murmured prayers of other women battling ghosts. Her music made them still, even if just for a breath. By the time she stopped, her tears were falling onto the keys. Outside, the snow fell against the windows like ash. That was the night she knew she'd never go back, not to the conservatory halls, not to the red carpets or the award ceremonies. Not after the betrayal. Not after the crash. Not after discovering she was pregnant and alone. Lucy came into the world a month later, wrapped in a flannel blanket and silence. She didn't cry right away. The nurse looked worried. But Catherine held her close, hummed the notes of that same lost song, 3 bars, and Lucy blinked up at her like she recognized it. From that moment on, the world shrank to one mission: protect the child, whatever it takes. She sold the violin. She threw away every program, every review, every invitation. She took a job at a sandwich shop. Then 2 jobs. Then 3. Music was a memory, sealed behind silence and sacrifice. Years passed. Catherine cleaned houses, waited tables, scrubbed floors. Nights were for work, mornings for Lucy. She taught her daughter how to read by flashlight, how to dance barefoot in laundromats, how to listen for the music inside things, the rustle of leaves, the rattle of train tracks, the hum of refrigerators. Lucy soaked it in like air. At 6, she started tapping out songs on the table using spoons. By 8, she was humming harmonies to raindrops. At 10, she picked up a plastic toy violin from a thrift store bin, and never let go. Catherine panicked. "We can't afford lessons," she said gently. "I'll teach myself," Lucy whispered. "You don't even have a real violin." "I don't need one," Lucy said, her eyes far away. "It's already inside." And maybe it was. Some nights, when she thought her mother was asleep, Lucy would sit on the edge of the bed, bow in hand, drawing sound from silence. Raw. Unrefined. But something in it ached with familiarity. Catherine would lie in the dark, pillow clutched to her chest, tears soaking into cotton, because the melody, it wasn't possible. It was hers. A piece she had composed in secret, years ago, played only once at a recital the world forgot. How did Lucy know? She never asked. Some fears are too fragile to speak aloud. One bitter November evening, Lucy disappeared for 3 hours. Catherine tore through the neighborhood, breathless with dread. She found her on a street corner in downtown Burlington, bowing softly beneath the cold neon glow of a pawn shop sign. Coins clinked into a paper cup at her feet. "What are you doing?" Catherine choked. "Saving up," Lucy said. "For real strings. That's dangerous. You could have been." "No one saw me," Lucy whispered. "Except one man. He just stood there, crying." It unnerved Catherine. Not because of the danger, but because she remembered the expression she'd worn the last time she made a grown man weep in an auditorium filled with velvet seats. History, it seemed, had found a crack in her armor. That night, after Lucy fell asleep, Catherine sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a dusty envelope, the last relic of her past. Inside was a photo. She and 3 others on stage, a trio of prodigies. One was now a global concertmaster. The other ran a foundation for gifted musicians. And the third? James Wright. He wasn't a violinist. He was the patron who funded them all. Back then, he was just the awkward, too rich for his own good kid with a haunted stare who watched every rehearsal with clenched fists. He never smiled. But he always came. Catherine remembered the last words he ever said to her before she vanished. "I don't understand how someone can play pain so beautifully." Neither did she. But she carried that pain every day since. Back in the present, James stared at the school application forms on his desk. Berkshire Academy of Music had never accepted an untaught student before. But then again, they'd never heard a child play a piece she was never taught. Lucy's audition was scheduled for Friday. Catherine hadn't agreed to it yet. In fact, she hadn't returned his calls in 2 days. James left the penthouse and walked the streets that night, the way he used to after his parents died. Rain dripped from the brim of his coat, and his hands curled into fists. He wasn't angry at Catherine. He was angry at the system that let brilliance rot in basement apartments while mediocrity filled boardrooms. When he reached their building, he stood outside in the rain, staring at the flickering light of their unit. Then the window opened. And Lucy's music poured out into the night, clearer now, richer, like it had matured in her bones. James leaned against the wall. And cried. Friday arrived like a weight pressing down on Catherine's chest. The halls of the Berkshire Academy shimmered with polished wood and hushed prestige, each step echoing with memories she never meant to relive. She hadn't walked these floors in over a decade. Not since she was forced to give up her scholarship, just 3 weeks after playing the performance that had once stunned the nation, and broken her life in half. Lucy walked beside her, small hands squeezing Catherine's tighter than usual. She wasn't nervous. Just quiet. She'd never seen her mother like this. Pale. Distant. As if the building itself had claws buried in her ribs. They reached the reception room. Waiting inside was James Wright. He stood when they entered, smoothing his coat like it could straighten the awkwardness between them. Catherine didn't speak. She kept Lucy close, eyes scanning the room like an escape route might materialize through the walls. I wasn't sure you'd come, James said softly. I almost didn't, Catherine replied. James looked down. If this is too much. I'm not here for you, she cut in. I'm here because she earned it. Not because of pity. Not because of legacy. She played a piece she never learned, one I never taught her. James froze. That piece. He remembered it. He'd heard it once before. Long ago. When he was 17. When Catherine played it under the chandelier in the Academy's Great Hall, with tears rolling silently down her cheek. It had broken something inside him, then buried it. I have to ask, he said carefully. Did you ever tell her about your past? Catherine's jaw tightened. No. And I don't plan to. But she played it. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. Lucy was ushered into the audition room by the school director. The heavy doors closed, and silence fell. James turned back to Catherine. Why did you stop? You were the brightest star. They said you'd change the world. She smiled bitterly. I did. I brought someone into it. But the crash, the accident, wasn't that. Sabotage, she asked coldly. Of course. But no one cared enough to prove it. I was the scholarship girl, remember? The nobody with too much talent. They said it was bad luck. Then they pulled my funding. Called me unstable. Said maybe I cracked under pressure. Who would do that to you? James asked. She gave him a long, unblinking stare. Ask your father. His face went white. She had never told him before. James Wright Sr. had funded the music program. He had selected the scholarship students. And he had also orchestrated which of them rose and which disappeared. After your mother died, Catherine said slowly, he needed someone to control. I wouldn't play by his rules. So he cut the strings. James staggered back a step. He remembered a heated argument between his father and the board. He remembered Catherine's name being mentioned in angry tones. He remembered a wrecked violin case outside the conservatory the day she vanished. He never asked questions. Until now. I'm sorry, James said. If I had known. It's too late for sorry, Catherine replied. But it's not too late for Lucy. Behind the door, music began. Not loud. Not showy. Just a gentle thread of sound weaving through the walls like breath. James knew the melody. Of course he did. It was the piece. The impossible one. The one only two people had ever played. He sat down slowly. Catherine stayed standing. The music built, layer by layer, each note unfolding like a memory returning home. Not just technical brilliance, but emotion. Depth. Soul. Halfway through the piece, the violin faltered for a breath, just a moment of hesitation. Then Lucy's voice, small but clear, rang out through the crack beneath the door. "Mom," she said softly. "This part always makes me cry. Do you want me to stop?" James turned, stunned. Catherine's lips parted, but no words came. "She knows you're here," James whispered. Catherine was already crying. Lucy continued playing. At the climax of the piece, something shifted. The sound rose, not just in pitch, but in intention. It wasn't imitation. It was interpretation. Lucy wasn't copying her mother. She was answering her. The final notes held like suspended light, then faded. Silence. Catherine fell into the chair beside James. Her hands were shaking. The doors opened. Lucy emerged, her cheeks pink, eyes wide. She looked at her mother, not for approval, but for comfort. "I didn't mean to cry in the middle," she said. "You didn't cry," Catherine whispered. "You just reminded the world what it means to feel." The director approached, visibly moved. "Where did she learn that arrangement?" "She didn't," Catherine said. James stood, stunned. "Then how?" "I told you," Catherine said. "She never heard it. Not from me. She plays what's inside." The director leaned in. "We want her here. Full scholarship. Starting immediately." "But..." Catherine tensed. "But what?" "She needs a guardian with a musical background. Someone who can help guide her integration. And, she's not legally old enough to board full-time alone." Catherine's heart sank. She worked nights. She couldn't quit. They needed rent. "I'll sponsor them," James said suddenly. "Both of them." Catherine's eyes snapped to him. "What?" "I mean it," James said. "I have rooms at my estate. She can practice. You can rest. You can teach her if you want. Or not. But you'll be safe." Catherine narrowed her gaze. "And what do you get?" James hesitated. Then his voice dropped. "Maybe a second chance. Not just with you. But with everything I destroyed by staying silent." Catherine didn't answer. But Lucy stepped forward and slipped her hand into his. It was the smallest gesture. But it shattered him. The mansion on the hill was nothing like Catherine remembered from the rumors. It wasn't cold or marble-laced like the Sapphire restaurant. It was quiet, sun-drenched, and filled with corners of forgotten warmth, bookshelves filled with dog-eared paperbacks, velvet chairs softened by time, and a grand piano untouched for years. Catherine stood at the threshold of the music room, arms crossed, unsure. Lucy was already inside, running her fingers over the ivory keys like meeting a friend. She didn't play yet. She just touched the space. James lingered by the doorway, watching them both like a man still afraid to believe this wasn't a dream. The arrangement wasn't simple. Catherine had kept her job part-time, still cleaning after hours at a smaller cafe to retain some independence. But James had kept his promise, offering them not charity, but space. Privacy. A tutor for Lucy. A room for Catherine with a key and no expectations. It was 3 weeks after the audition when the first letter arrived. Unsigned. Typed in clean serif font. "Are you ready to remember who you are, Catherine Wilson?" Inside the envelope was a photograph. An old conservatory stage. A younger version of her standing center spotlight. Not smiling. Just, full. She didn't show it to Lucy. Not yet. She burned it. But that night, she didn't sleep. She lay awake with her hands curled against her chest, her fingers twitching with remembered melodies. The next morning, she woke to the sound of the violin. It wasn't Lucy. It was her own. Catherine stumbled out of bed, barefoot, hair unbrushed, and followed the sound. James stood at the base of the staircase, holding something wrapped in velvet. "You kept it," she whispered. "I didn't," he said. "She found it in the attic. She said it smelled like you." He unwrapped the case. The violin was battered, but whole. The bow needed restringing. But it was hers. The one she'd left behind the night she was expelled. The one his father had taken. Catherine lifted it with trembling fingers. "I can't play," she whispered. James met her eyes. "Then don't. Just hold it." She did. And it broke her. For the first time in 12 years, she sobbed. Not the quiet, hidden tears she shed behind bleach-scented mops and diner toilets. Real tears. Cleansing tears. Her shoulders shook. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, holding the violin like a lifeline. Lucy came down slowly, watching her mother cry, not with fear, but with awe. "It's okay," she whispered, kneeling beside her. "You don't have to pretend anymore." Catherine looked at her, dazed. "How do you know?" Lucy tilted her head. "Because you stopped humming." Catherine blinked. "You used to hum every night before bed," Lucy said. "Then you stopped. Around the time I started playing. I think you gave your music to me. But I want to give it back." Later that evening, Lucy asked if they could play something together. Not for anyone else. Just for themselves. They sat in the sunroom, the windows cracked open to the first spring air. Catherine tuned her old violin. Lucy tuned the new one James had bought her last week. No music sheets. Just memory and feeling. They began with a simple melody. A lullaby. Then it grew, improvised in gentle loops and mirrored notes. It wasn't perfect. But it was alive. Halfway through, James sat down in the corner, eyes closed. He didn't need words. He just listened. Because for the first time in his life, silence wasn't empty, it was sacred. A week later, Catherine walked into the Berkshire Academy of Music alone. The director met her with hesitation. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. Catherine smiled. "Neither was I." He handed her a letter. "We're offering you a guest instructor position. No title. No press. Just a classroom and students who need what only you can teach." Catherine stared at the offer. "And Lucy?" she asked. "She's already made more progress in 3 weeks than most in 3 years, he said. "But she's different. You know that. She plays like someone with something older inside her." Catherine nodded slowly. "I know," she said. "She didn't inherit my skills. She inherited my silence." That night, Lucy found a gift on her pillow. A folded note. A necklace. And a single line. "Your soul is louder than anything I could have taught." She wore it every day afterward. Not because it was gold. But because it was truth. In the final weeks of spring, the Sapphire restaurant hosted its annual gala. This year, James Wright insisted the entertainment be provided by a rising star, Lucy Wilson. She stood alone on stage, until, at the last moment, a second figure stepped beside her. Catherine. No one recognized her at first. But when she lifted the bow, everything stopped. And when the music began, raw, rich, and rebuilt from memory, the crowd wept. Not for fame. Not for spectacle. But for the echo of something once lost. And now finally returned.